Coming to you live from downtown Detroit, this is Benzinga's PreMarket Prep. With your host, Joel Elconin.
This is a volatile puppy here, isn't it?
And Dennis Dick.
I'm bidding a penny. I will buy the stock for a penny.
With everything you need to start your trading day.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Wednesday edition of Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep. Spencer Israel. As always, I'm joined by Joel Elconin and Dennis Dick. On the show today, the earnings parade continues. Just a few names that we're going to talk about. Smile Direct Club, Skyworks Solutions, Datadog, CSIQ. After the close today, we've got Cisco. So earnings still trickling in here. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the rotation kind of sort of back into Momo yesterday. Those high flyers like Roku and Shopify had good days. You know, yesterday was the first unchanged day for the Dow in 5 years. Yep, I saw that as well. So funny little market trivia there. Big show today, long show today. So we're going to have Anne-Marie Baiynd on at 8:15. And as we did last week, we're going to experiment with a bonus hour of pre-market prep. So at 9 o'clock, Dennis and I, well, I'll hang out, but Dennis is going to leave, and we're going to be joined by Sean Udall from Quantum Trading Strategies from 8 to 9. So from 9 to 10. Bonus hour of pre-market prep. The three of us here from 8 to 9, Joel and Sean on from 9 to 10. So let's roll into it, guys. Joel, what's happening here overnight?
A little bit of red here on the screen. S&P futures are down 9.5 handles at 82.50. All-time closing high yesterday at 309.2. Opened up just below that. Couldn't hold. Nice sell-off. Went down to 75.75. That's the area Mondays and Tuesdays lows. Working our way back towards unchanged at 83.75. Crude in the red here by 17 cents at 56.63. Gold in the green by 10.60 at 14.64.30. Silver trying to reclaim 17, up 21.8 cents at 16.91. And Bitcoin down $45 at 8,790. And I did see that the Merc is going to be trading Bitcoin options starting, I don't know, late next year. I think I saw Bitcoin options coming out on the CME. Triple D, a little bit of a sell-off overnight. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, pretty good. I think it's just the deal or no deal. So there was hints yesterday that the deal wasn't as close to happening with China as maybe a lot of people and a lot of media has speculated. So we were a little bit spooked yesterday, spooked again here overnight. I mean, China has had it rough for the last couple of days. We know the riots that have been going on over there. If you look at the FXI, we topped out 4 days ago, and we've given back all of last week's gains almost now. We're down at 41.06 here this morning, which puts us at major support on the FXI. If you're looking at that chart, lots of support at 41, but giving back the entire last week's of gains, and it was a good week. EM is the same story. We're coming back down. Obviously, those track each other. A lot of China and the emerging markets. Fun there. So that's your catalyst here overnight. It wasn't a good market overseas. We are seeing some rallies here in some other stocks this morning, obviously, but we're seeing a lot of sell-offs across the board.
Dennis, we can't ignore BZ Tokyo here anymore. He's asked the same question a few times.
What do you got?
And I don't know if you've done any research on this one. NLOK. Norton LifeLock shares, they're doing a big dividend. Now, we've seen this before, I believe. I'm not seeing it in the I think they're doing like a 10.
What is the new symbol again? I have to change my system because it used to be semantic. It's
NLOK.
NLOK?
Yep.
And yeah, I know they're doing some type of special dividend. Is that what is happening?
They are doing.
No, they already did it, didn't they?
What price would be in?
Or maybe they didn't. Not yet.
No,
not yet.
For that special $10 dividend is it next year in Q4? That's a lot.
They don't normally go out that far. I'm not following the story closely enough to comment. I know they were doing a special dividend. I don't know the date of it.
If that far away, I mean, I would just try and, build a position. How much money do you want to put into it? I'd maybe try and do it in 4 tranches and keep an eye on, like, right now.
You want to get the dividend? Is that what?
That's what he's saying, yeah.
I mean, the way I play it, when I'm going after dividends, I buy them the night before. So I don't build it up a week or 2 or 3. I usually, we'll buy it the night before, maybe 2 days before, because you sometimes see a run up. You won't see a run up for months ahead of that, in my opinion.
Nope.
Again, I'm not familiar when the date of this is. So I do see, I just Googled it quickly. I do see that they are intending on paying a special dividend. If somebody knows that date, they're following the story closer than me.
I only know in the fourth quarter of next year.
That's a
I
long
don't
ways
know if there
away.
is a
Yeah.
date.
Okay, so I don't know the story here at all. I would just say special dividends in general are very confusing when they are this large. They mess up the ex-dividend date sometimes. I've seen it before, so just be careful, double check, and make sure you've got the date right. I've actually seen where the exchanges have even messed these up. Because on a normal dividend, it comes in, but when you have a special dividend, it's over 25% of what the amount of the stock is. The dates change. So I don't know why they do it that way, but it gets all messed up. So anyways, make sure you know the date of this if you're going to trade these. But again, I don't know the story here. I don't know when the special dividend is coming. I just see them from Googling that there is supposed to be one
Yeah.
coming.
I mean, you can't automatically assume that the stock will slowly creep up $10 before that, right?
It may not creep up at all. I mean, in a $12 special dividend case, I mean, you're going to be, this money's coming directly from the company. It's not like it's just money created from nothing. So special dividends never go up as much as what they are. I mean, we've seen different dividends paid where they're $3-4 and they might go up $1 or $2 ahead of it, but don't expect it to run up $12 because it's paying a special dividend. It's money coming from the company. So other things being equal, you're really not better off as a shareholder. You're just getting the money directly from the company, and some people like that. So that's why you sometimes see a little run up ahead of it. I play the ex-dividend strategy. I've talked about this a lot on the show. We can talk about it in New York next week, not on special dividends, but just on regular dividends. And you do typically see some strength a day or two ahead of it. We talk about AT&T. Sometimes it can be as much as a week ahead of it because those are dividend stocks. Verizon, same thing. Those are stocks that people are just owning for the dividend, and money managers tend to jump into these things, or it's even traders tend to jump in these things ahead of the ex-dividend to capture it. It's called dividend capture. I do it as well because it tends to work, because typically when the stocks go ex-dividend, they don't always fall quite as much as the dividend. Now you've got to consider tax consequences if you are a retail trader. As a pro, I don't have to consider any tax consequences because everything is taxed 100%. So I don't get any breaks on dividends. I don't get any breaks on capital losses. It's all taxed 100%. So it's easy for me as a pro. If I get a 50-cent dividend and I lose 45 cents on the stock, I make a nickel. So where you've got to consider your own tax consequences, talk to your accountant even about this stuff before starting to employ a dividend capture strategy if you are not a professional.
And the only thing I would add to that is the only one that comes to mind is Costco. This is back in 2017. Now they're totally different companies, but maybe, take a look at how that stock traded. This was back in May of 2017 for a little history of what, at least one stock there. They're totally different stocks, different sectors, different cash flows and everything. But maybe go take a look at.
I don't remember that one. That paid
yeah.
a big special dividend?
Yeah. Yep. Costco.
I mean, you're talking in this case though, if the numbers are correct that I'm Googling here, it's 12, that's 50% of the float.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like 50% of the stock price.
That's
so weird. Costco, what was the Costco special dividend?
$7.
Yeah, $7 on a $200 stock. So it's not meeting that 25%. So not all special dividends, it's only the ones that are over a certain amount of what the stock price is. So once you start getting over 20, I think it's 25%, then they change the way the ex-dividend date works. And that's where it messes up the exchanges sometimes. It messes up the companies, even mess these up sometimes. I've seen them before. So it's very confusing once you get a special dividend that high. So I'll just say, I saw one case with TiVo, and this was back like 5 years ago. They got it totally wrong. They got the dividend day wrong. They adjusted the price, and then they readjusted it after the case. And it was like a $3 stock, and they knocked it down to $2. People were hitting it all morning, thinking, oh, I'm selling at $2.50. I'm making 50 cents, and they had the date wrong. So actually, they were just flat out losing 50 cents on a $2 stock. And so it's significant. I saw millions of shares trade because it was so confused and nobody realized what the real date was. So in the stock, the next, later that morning, they announced, a clarification. I think it even came, maybe, I'm not sure, from the company or from the exchange, a clarification of what it was. And everybody who was selling it that morning were basically selling it without the dividend. So it was a mess. So sometimes on these special dividend cases, they can be very confusing is all I'm saying. So just be careful if you're, jumping in the day of and then selling it the next morning, because sometimes they get those dates wrong.
All right, Spencer, you want to take over here to get us some earnings?
Sure, we can do that. Nothing like super huge. A few interesting names, but nothing that was like super huge. So if you have any earnings you'd like to hear specifically, drop them in the chat. I don't know if you or Dennis have any favorites. I'll just go to the top of my filters here: biggest gainers, biggest losers, and I'm seeing CSIQ near the top of my loser filter this morning. They reported.
Can you show us how to do that in the Pro quickly? Because this is a nice tool.
Sure.
And a lot of our listeners do have the Pro. Can you just show the Pro quickly and show us how you scan for the biggest winners and losers? I use this tool in the Pro. This is a good one.
This is my personal favorite. I mean, there's a lot.
It's really good. It's a really good tool. It'll tell you everything that's way up and way down. You just come in the morning, you bring up this tool, and it'll show you everything that's moving. If you're in the Pro, if you're a Pro subscriber, it's right in there for you.
If I only was allowed to get one thing in Pro, it would be this feature.
It's a good tool. It's a really good. I mean, the news is obviously where you make some money too, but this is a good tool to get you informed quickly.
This is my favorite. So here, I'm pulling it up right now. Give me a second here. Call me flat-footed. So
I threw him under the bus on this one. He wasn't prepared.
That's okay. So, okay, here's my Pro default window, right? Going to the movers widget, right? And this is what that looks like. So this top bar here lets you sort of filter out your movers. What I like to do is I like to filter. I have a gainers filter for the pre-market. Over the course of the entire session, I filter a little bit by market cap. I don't care about small caps really. And I filter by price. And there's my mover. There's my up movers. I do it again. This is going to be my down movers. So these are my losers now. Same thing. Pre-market, session, filter by market cap, filter by price. Boom. I've got up filter. I've got a down filter. This shows me everything. And this is the first thing that I look at when I come in every morning, is right here. So when I say CSIQ, maybe CSIQ is not the biggest loser of the morning. Maybe there are some small caps that are down more, but for my purposes, CSIQ is at the top or near the top of the list. So this is what I'm looking at every morning. Make sense?
Yep. Spencer, so we're looking at it here. I'm just trying to replicate it here. I don't know why mine wasn't working as much.
It's called the movers.
Yeah, and I use it too.
And I use two. I use one just for my up movers, one just for my down movers.
Could you do it just do it again real quick?
Sure.
Start it right from scratch so everybody can replicate it.
I'll do it again. So this is here. I'll just close out all
Spencer is going to be doing a special
presentation. We don't promote the Pro that often, like flat out or take some time on our show here.
This is a
tool that I think is important for people to understand.
This is the homepage of Pro, right?
Yeah.
This is our main homepage. I'm going to the movers widget, right? So
yes.
Movers right there. Okay. And then these are all the filters that pop up automatically that you can filter the widget by. I'm going to do just gainers. I'm going to do the pre-market session. I'm going to do the entire pre-market session as opposed to every hour, half hour, 15 minutes. All sectors.
That's where I was. So make sure it says session, not 15 minutes.
Right.
That's where I had the button wrong.
The entire session is what I do. The entire pre-market session. You can do the regular session.
That's an important button to know.
Right. And then this is my personal preference. I filter by market cap, filter by price. Okay. That's it. For my up filters, do it again. Same thing, but for my losers, I want my gainers on one, my losers on the other. Pre-market, session, filter, price, filter, market cap.
Make sure your period says session. Don't hit it to if you hit it to the 15 minutes, it's going to show you what's moved in the last 15 minutes.
Which can also be
kind of be candy. But if you just want to wake up in the morning and you want to see what is moving, make sure you hit the session button because you want to see the pre-market for the entire session, not just for the last 15 minutes. And that's why if you hit 15 minutes right now, CSIQ won't show up because it hasn't moved 15% in the last 15 minutes, but it has in the session.
Right.
So that's the key.
So then I click this little, blue exit the filter area, and here we go. Voila. Gainers on the left, losers on the right. And that's how I do it every morning, essentially. And that's
And-
pretty much.
And if you don't like the penny stocks in there, you can just move up the market cap, like with the little button
right,
right
exactly.
there.
I don't like them, so I filter them out. I filter them
300
out.
million you can go up to, and then you get rid of most of them. You go up to 2 billion to get rid of everything. So 300 million is probably the best, way to get rid of most of those penny stocks. But and you can also filter by price, so you can just go up to like $5. If you don't want to see anything under $5, move it up to $5. It won't show you anything under $5, and then you get like what's really moving. Stocks that you see now. You see Smile Direct, you see Canadian Solar at the top is MTOR, and then obviously Skyworks. It's a lot of the companies that reported. So, which is typical every morning.
Question from the chat. What time, and I just had to ask Brent because I wasn't sure myself, what time does it start showing movers in the morning? As soon as there are movers, essentially. So as soon as anything is moving in the pre-market session, as long as you have your pre-market movers up, as long as you have it set to pre-market and not to the regular, not to the after hours, if you have it set to pre-market, when there are movers, sometimes I come in and there are only like, a dozen movers here.
But you can go to after hours, and then you could see what was moving last night too.
Right, exactly.
So instead, if you're coming in like 4:30 in the morning and there's not much moving in the pre-market yet, you can hit after hours and it'll show you what was moving last night.
Right.
So that's a nice tool there too, because it's kind of recapping last night's action for you.
Exactly.
So it's a really handy tool.
So here are the after hours movers according to Pro. I generally don't go here as much as I use the pre-market, but they're both useful. So again, this is my personal favorite tool in Benzinga Pro. If I can only get one thing, it would be this. Just for purposes for my job. This is I come in and this is what I need. When for whatever reason, if for whatever reason I don't have this, I feel like I'm blind, quite honestly, because this is what gets me my bearings.
This basically allows you to not sit there all night like I do. Because I sit there and trade all night, and I'm trading actually. But if you just want to come quickly get informed, this tool is great.
All right, Joel, I think you want to say something real fast.
Yeah,
and then I want to go to our guest.
Okay. Haven't covered many stocks yet today.
It's okay. We'll do it with Anne Marie.
If you want to get a trial and have someone you work on it with you, email Jonathan Mallard. He does an incredible job here introducing people to Pro. It's Jonathan, Jonathan, and then Mallard, Mallard, and he can set you up with a free trial, help you set things up. He's a great guy. He's using my Michigan basketball tickets on Friday. So make sure you get a hold of Jonathan today, or just send him an email. He's a busy guy.
I just dropped his email in the chat. Question is movers available to the public? It's available to anyone who subscribes to Benzinga Pro. But
if you and you know what, we get a free trial for Benzinga Pro too. So just reach out to that email that's put out there. Somebody was saying it's 15 minutes delayed. It is not delayed. This is not delayed. This is showing off the last. So as soon as something moves, it will show up. Correct? Yeah. This is not delayed.
These are, to the best of my knowledge, retail.
Yeah, these are real time.
Real time.
So it's going to show you, what's moved here.
Okay, so and Mallard is great. He does this all day, so he knows way more than we do. So I'll try to answer your questions in the chat, but Mallard knows way more about Pro than I do. So all right, let's go to our guest.
I don't think it's delayed anyways.
Let's go to our guest today, our first guest, I should say, Anne Marie Baiynd, favorite of the show. She's an author. She's a trader. She runs the tradingbook.com, and she joins our show periodically to just give us, make us feel okay about the market. I feel like anytime we're like super stressed about the market, she somehow manages to talk us off the ledge. So Anne Marie, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
So let's just talk about this market here. We haven't really covered many stocks yet today, but just at a high level, tell us what you're thinking here.
Well, yesterday, did you guys see that the TVIX had a record low? And so the TVIX is the inverse of the VIX. And I thought as we went to this all-time high and we had this low with the TVIX, and then Bank of America Merrill Lynch saying that they have seen more cash flood right back into the market than they had seen in 2013, that this might be a contrarian indicator of some kind. And so my suspicion is, as it has been for a little bit, that all our upside pressure events are going to fade. So I've been tweeting, listen, if you want to buy this breakout, how about waiting for a pullback, get involved, and when you see a brand new high, start putting your stop up higher. I do not like the idea of getting in long with all of these strange things happening underneath and the broad market really not participating in ways that we want to see them participate. You know, one of the biggest movers, Amazon, and I know that Dennis was talking about Amazon the other day, might even have been yesterday. You said you were all in on Google and then you didn't know about Amazon because I was listening to the show. And, you know, look at how far off the high Amazon is. And it's been a trailblazer. And so, you know, my suspicion is that we really are seeing some caution lights. And so in caution lights, do we give up the opportunity for having massive gains if we go all in on margin and the market runs another 100 points? Of course, but that's not the job of the trader. The job of the trader is not to be levered all in spaces that look risky. It's to be in areas where risk is clearly defined. And on top of that, if you study volume profiles, what we are seeing are these big pockets of literally air in all these gaps up. And although all gaps do not fill, many of them do, and many of them do in the broad indices. So, you know, am I being Chicken Little? I don't think so. I want us to be long. I want us to be long in ways that make sense, where catalysts are showing that, yes, it's a great place to be long, but I wouldn't stay long, and I certainly would not have a lot of size in any place. This is how I am personally positioned right now. It is very cautiously long. And in hindsight, I could go all in on margin and sit in the futures and take a holiday, but you know, we don't have hindsight, and every day gives us a brand new jitter.
Emery, let me set up a scenario just to back up what you were saying. I mean, we have a situation where we don't know what's happening with China. It's maybe the last day. It's not looking as close to a deal as it is. All it would take is for Chinese officials to come out and say, or raise tariffs, or to say something negative about the deal, and we'd fall 500 points in 2 minutes. That can happen. Not saying it's going to happen, but that can happen. This market still has headline risk. So yeah, if you're going all in saying, oh, the coast is clear, we made new highs yesterday, we're not in the type of market where we are just completely devoid of headlines here. We saw this happen, you know, significantly, you know, a few months ago. We haven't seen a China major headline in the last month, and it makes us forget. But we're not out of the woods with this China deal yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on top of that, you know, we still have this little slowdown event that really, you know, a lot of folks are looking at things, watching inflation uptick and looking at a number of things that look like they're bottoming. And that might mean that we have this little ripple of sort of sideways earnings over the next little bit. Even if we don't head higher, we have some things that could keep us in place, but we are so fidgety and so many algos are running news feeds. It's like what you said, they read the headline and they're off to the races, and then, you know, it turns right around and does whatever. And so there is a tremendous amount of underlying risk. You know, it's like, I don't know, crocodiles in the water. I just have to say I'm very cautious right now.
We're on the line with Anne-Marie Baiynd. She's a trader, market technician, author, and CEO of the tradingbook.com. Anne-Marie, I just want to talk to you, and you're kind of getting at it the same way. If anything, we're running out a little bit of steam, right? I mean,
Yes.
not that, it's impossible to pick a top, even though I try to a lot. But you will notice that the ranges are really consolidating. I mean, all of last week,
Yes.
we had a 34-point range. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some days where you can make 34 handles, on a trade in the market.
Right.
And that's how much it moved for the entire week. So, I'm keying on the low from last week, really, because I like to give it some room here. But what does that it's not going to persist forever, right? I keep track of the 9-day average trading range, and I've seen it go from 100 plus down to 50, down to 40. Now we're under 25, closing, inching towards 20. So what does that say? Buyers and sellers are just getting tighter and tighter here, kind of like, just getting ready to expand. Now, whether it's going to be a tweet or some other macro event, but how do you look at these consolidation phases, and where are your levels in the S&Ps for, say, okay, we lost last week's low, or this is the bottom that I was looking to hold. What are your levels?
Okay, so first of all, what we're looking at is probably the 5th day in a narrow range. So we have that, that little thing that we say, hey, you watch 5-day narrow ranges, you watch 7-day narrow ranges, you watch 9-day narrow ranges, because after that, charts are very likely to expand, because mostly traders, we're such a patient lot that we throw ourselves into one end of the pool and say, hey, I'm going to try and break this right now. I'm sick and tired of staying here in this sideways pocket. And so what I'm seeing is the narrow ranges. What I'm looking at from the ES, I am looking at the close of last week, and it's 30.72. And so that's pretty high up. We got to 30.75 today and a little bit, and we started bouncing. And so my thought on this daily rotation is, hey, we've got to hold 30.72, or if we lose it, we have to immediately recover it on a 30-minute candlestick, or else we've got some trouble on the horizon. Now, even higher up than that is 30.87. And today, that's where I'm looking at for really resistance, 30.87 to 30.89. What I'm trying to do is sort of pick the top from an intraday perspective, see how it begins to perform there, right? If I see tons of sellers coming in, I'm going to take a shot at the failed retest at that 30.89, 30.88 area. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what I'm going to watch. And I'm going to have to look for buyers again at 75 and 72, because that's where they've been bouncing in. If they don't come, then we're looking at 30.62, and then 30.54, and then 30.29.
All right. So I also wanted to talk to you about inflation and the possibility of inflation here, uptick in inflation. We had a good jobs number. I mean, yes. They wanted the Fed to lower rates, and they did. Then you come out with good numbers, you're thinking, well, why the heck did they do that? But just tell us, if there's one thing that could knock this market off its keister, it's a run in inflation. So talk about the uptick in inflation that you've identified, and the implications for the energy and commodity sectors.
Okay, so when we see sort of this flattening event, and we've got the PCE giving us a little bit of an uptick, what we are looking at really are just the very beginnings of rotation into these really beaten down sectors. And so I've been talking about them a little bit. Commodities have been smashed. Energy has been smashed. And so the number one thing to look at, if you're thinking, wait a second, are we seeing some measure of uptick? We can have the voices that talk to us who are really just talking about their opinions and what they interpret data to look like. And so as we come back into that space, we have to assess that data ourselves. And so this chart on the USO is perfect because what it shows is from June, the buyers have said, do all you want, sellers, but you come into that 1080 area and you can try to sell it to me all day long. I'll buy as much as you've got. And so when the chart begins to base like that, the next question is, well, where actually do the sellers start capitulating themselves in terms of moving back up the lines? And so one of the things that we are seeing is this rise up into the top of the congestion zones that we are seeing. Now, it's not up at the top per se in that, let me see where my,
We just had
sorry.
CPI. Just
Yeah.
real quickly,
Go ahead.
CPI pretty much in line here. That doesn't really move the market. We're still down 9 handles, coming up on mid-range of the session at 83.75. Go ahead, Marie. I just wanted to get that CPI number in there.
Okay, great. So now what we have is a decision zone. And on this daily, we can see everybody's pretty much selling off at 12. So the jury is still out in terms of buyers saying, you know what, I feel good about this, I'm moving upward. Now, really, we might look at inflation numbers ticking up. We might say, hey, listen, we need to go to these areas that have been beaten down. But the fact of the matter is, every single week for the last couple of weeks, we've had builds and they've been substantial. And so the builds in inventory not telling us the story that we believe the traders are trying to get in front of, particularly with the WTI. And so what we want to see as traders trying to look at a breakout is a pop up over 12, 1250, and then a pullback that holds the 12 region. So if I were engaging in USO, I would set an alert for 1230. And then once it went off, I would set another alert for 12 or 1190. And if it goes off and I'm still holding these higher lows and it breaches that 12, I can engage and I can see that my next step upward is into the 13 marker. We do have a lot, we're a wash in oil. I mean, we're a wash in oil and we're always going to be a wash in oil. I remember in the 70s and 80s where they were telling us we would run out of it. And there's so much of it. I'm not really sure if we're ever going to get to these monumental levels, but for sure, the USO is one of those things to watch. The next one to have a look at is the DBA. So if you look at DBA, that is more grains and that sort of thing. Now take a look at this one. I started talking about this back in September because of the weather up here in the Midwest. And I said, hey, listen, these guys have planted soy and they're not going to even get to pull it out of the ground. They've planted corn and they're not going to even get to pull it out of the ground. The only reason that they were planting is so they could get their subsidy. So the absolute rain and floods that we had up here in the grain belt were absolutely terrible. And so what was supposed to happen was that it was supposed to hop up above 16, but it was supposed to do that before the end of October. And it really didn't. All of a sudden, it's really started climbing. You can see this move. I think this initial move is fairly close to being done. If we draw Fibonacci, we can see that, it's probably up at the 78%. But what we really wanted to do is come back and hold 1550. If that is the case, we're going to see a commodity run. And that's also going to be good for us if the dollar can move down. We talk a lot about why these interest rates should move or shouldn't move. And if you're a stock guy, there's no reason in the world. But if you're a bond guy, there's every reason in the world. And so there is a significant trouble in the bonds underneath that's propping all the credit that's propping the market up. if you're a stock guy, awesome. If you're a bond guy, it's quite troubling. And that's why they have to go to the window. That's why they went to the window last night with $110 billion, and people are taking it on the short range for loan and just pumping it out into the market and every place else. That's why we probably got another upshot on the horizon. But if they can push the dollar down, this is going to be really, really good for the commodities.
All right, Anne-Marie Baiynd, great follow on Twitter at Anne-Marie Trades, ANNEMARIE Trades. Anne-Marie, thanks so much for the time today.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right, 8:35 here now. Joel, how are we doing?
We're
out
just
there?
climbing back to mid-range here, only down eight and a half handles at 83.50. So we're getting back half of those losses from last night by the dippers, present in the after hours and
They don't go away.
traded. So let's.
Well, it's a good thing we have an extra hour today because we haven't talked that many stocks, and we got sidetracked from CSIQ. So I want to start there real fast,
Sure.
and then we'll move on. This is from after the Dell yesterday. They beat on their earnings, missed on their sales, and the Q4 sales guidance was light. The full year sales guidance was also light.
Somebody in the chat was saying, I think it's a dip to buy. I kind of think so too, but it's off so much from the lows now. Like this thing really got rocked last night. So you're coming here buying at 16. The dip was already bought. This thing got near 14, under $14.
under 13.50.
Crazy move last night. So this thing got down to 13.50. I actually tried to buy it in the low 14s. I should have just lifted an offer, but I didn't feel like paying up 30, 40 cents. I should have, because obviously it's come back a long way since then. Sometimes you just miss the trade and you move on. But you look at that and you're like, wow, that was a real overshoot, going right down to basically the December low of last year when we got down to 13.46. I mean, I think that's the low. I think that's going to be the low of the move. I still like the solar stocks long term. So, if you're looking at these things, get this thing $14, $15, stick in your long-term portfolio. I think you'll be happy about it. But I mean, they're out of favor. They've been out of favor for the last 2-3 months. They continue to be out of favor. If you look at the ETF TAN2, it's the same story, and obviously for solar and all the other solar stocks. So maybe there's a little bit of pressure here today because of CSIQ, but then you have another solar stock that's actually trading higher, which is Sunrun. So, and Run reported too, and it's trading up. So not nearly as much though as CSIQ is down.
You could have printed 13.05. That was
just got silly.
Yeah.
Silly. It was on the first bar too, pretty much.
Of course, Dennis, you know that.
This news algos, they're licensed to burn money.
And then you got a nice rebound here, 14.50. You're $1.50 off that. So it's a tough call here. I mean, definitely think the low's in. I guess maybe you could target 14.50. It doesn't even look like it's going to get there. Buyers even stepped up to the 15.50 level. So I agree with you on that one. Maybe wait a day or two. Maybe it will come back down to that area. But right now, the spike low and looking, and coming back. If you want to buy the old low, the former low of the move, you can do that pretty easily. 16.69. That was your low on Monday. That's been that's been the lowest level since the beginning of the year. What's the yearly low for this? In January, where'd you get to in January?
Right around that area.
14. Yep, 14. Yeah, 13.5, 14, the yearly low holds there. And then what's Sunrun? SR?
RUN.
RUN.
It's a nice symbol. It's not a running stock. It's a solar stock.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
So it's trading up a bit. It really just kind of hung out last night. It reported, and I guess they were okay. They actually reported, I believe, after CSIQ. So CSIQ probably set the bar pretty low. This is an okay report, but it's not up significantly on it.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat, but it's nothing to scream about here. It's up 2%.
This is like when you talk about strong stocks and pulling back. This is a weak stock, weak overall sector.
The whole sector has been weak for the last 2 or 3 months. So.
I think I really thought solar would have caught on a little bit more.
It did though. It had its run.
It has all year.
It did. Solar is really good all year. I mean, you think about where these things started, and you can bring up the TAN, which is a good. It was $18. It ran to 32. They're cooling off.
Yep.
No pun intended, but the solar stocks are cooling off. But some of these maybe are getting to a point where, hey, If you didn't want to chase them before, you're definitely not chasing now. I'm not saying for a trade, but I'm saying as a long-term investment, I think if you're putting some of these in your long-term portfolio and forgetting about them, I think you'll be happy. Again, I would like to talk to Gordon Johnson because he's the man in this sector. He is how, when I'm looking at solar stocks, and I'm looking, at certain issues. I know he's got Tesla. He's been wrong on Tesla, but Gordon Johnson's been pretty good in the solar sector. So
I
we'll
asked
get
him
him
to
on
come
soon.
out to the summit. I asked him to come out, not to the summit. I asked him to come out to the FinTech Awards. So maybe we'll get to meet him in person.
It'd be nice to get his thoughts here on the solar stocks as they've pulled back significantly.
All right, going from the chat here back to the earnings, let's look at 2U, TWOU, also reported after the close yesterday, and they beat on their earnings, they beat on their sales, and they gave some guidance that I guess was pretty good.
It's significantly, I don't know if that was the last quarter when it went from $35 to $11. I do not trade this stock. I maybe have made one trade in my life on this stock. Was that the last earnings when it went down 70% one day? Or is that an adjustment? What is that? I'm trying to figure out what that move was.
That was on.
It looks like 3 months ago when I'm looking at the charts. I'm wondering if that was the last earnings.
Yeah, that was end of August or end of July there. Yeah, that was earnings.
Wow. And this stock used to be $100 stock, $98, just going back just over a year ago, and we're down to $11. Obviously, that was a capitulation and an overshoot, and it's been grinding its way back since. I mean, now you're in here and you're like, okay, what's coming back? You're gonna have overhead supply at a certain point in time, but you're completely in a gap. So there's nothing. Like you're short at 25. Where's your out? Is this like this is that swinging at a pitch in the dirt? I mean, really, really hard to make a call here. You're in the middle of a gap. I mean, this is a gap all the way up to 30. What is that gap up to, Joel? 33.91.
Yeah, this is.
I'm not saying it's going there. I'm just saying there's nothing in here.
There's
really hard to trade.
And there's also a gap. I must have been 2 earnings reports ago, a big gap under 50. But this one, when you see this kind of chart, you see this kind of move off earnings, really the only thing for me to do would, if I was long, or I wouldn't be trying to short this one just the way the chart looks, but
yeah,
you buy pre-market high 26.50. You spiked up there initially, then you made that, just after the report, after hours, then you made another run at it at just before the 8 o'clock close of stocks, and then you kind of drifting lower. You're a buck off that. So if you really want to stay to get to $30, first things first, settle over 26.5 that first 15 minutes. We're also kind of be looking for a leak in this one, but this
easier trades out there.
Exactly.
This one's real hard.
Question here about Twilio from the chat, and this one is interesting. I had a bit of a day yesterday. So I saw that there is a report that, and this is the reason for the sell-off yesterday, that WhatsApp, which is Twilio's largest customer, would be scaling back their usage of Twilio. And I went to like four different sources, and they all said there are reports out there, and I could not find the original source of this report. So I don't know if it's just like street chatter or what, but I didn't see anyone taking ownership of this report that WhatsApp is scaling back their usage of Twilio. I just saw like 5 people copy it.
Well, what a sell-off rate to support almost again yesterday. I mean, these things come back. This 90 is just huge. So round it to 90. I know we cut through at 89, 81, 90, 15, 90, 61. I'm looking at those 4 lows right there in the same area. And we get there down near there yesterday, 91.37, and then it starts to turn again. I mean, 90 is the level on this. This thing gets down. It's found buyers multiple times. Like obviously a headline can take you through support. So if there's something, if it's true and they've lost a major customer, and maybe something happens there. But I'll just say, if ignoring all headlines, just looking at this technically, there's a lot of buyers down at 90.
Have they decided what their last earnings report was yet?
That was a little bit of a mess. But anyways, I actually, if you ignore all the headlines, I think some of the Momo stocks have turned. They started turning 2 days ago. I mean, we saw it with Roku 2 days ago. They bought that earnings. Obviously, it took a couple days, but eventually they started to buy. Shopify has been running for 3 straight days. So we have actually seen a slight turn in some of the leader Momo names. And if you look at some of the cloud stocks, it's the same story too. I mean, Twilio was running too before I had that bad headline. So I don't want to be short the Momo names right now. And before, you know, you can say even Amazon, which isn't a Momo exactly, but it's a higher PE stock, had a little bit of life yesterday. I mean, I think some of the Momo names started to show some life, a little bit of rotation. We had been seeing for the last month this rotation from Momo to value. Yesterday and the day before, it felt like they were coming in and buying some of the Momo names. So it's finally showing a little bit of life there.
The trade desk also caught
Trade desk took off. Look at that one too. Great example. Thanks, Griffin. TTD, great example. So yeah, Momo is starting to show life last 2 days. Obviously, I one Momo stock that I bought, it's Cloud or higher PE. I shouldn't just say Momo. It's higher PE really is what it is, and Momo is a lot of higher PE. But I bought Workday a couple days ago, and it kind of looks like it kind of wants to go to me. But again, you know, if we get the problem is we got headline risk overall. The deal with China falls apart, then, you know, a lot of things are going to change. So we don't know what's happening there. Obviously, we've had significant sell-off in some of the emerging markets because of the riots over there, but there's also concerns that a deal isn't as close as we think it is. So that's the wild card. But just looking at technicals again, ignoring all the headlines, some of these Momos are showing life.
Yeah, we could just talk about Tesla too.
Well, Tesla's unbelievable. That's the best short squeeze. I love it. I love it that it just keeps flying. It's up another $6 here. People are getting hurt in this that are short. The non-believers. I mean, there's so many people that just hated this stock and hate Elon Musk. And I was not one of them. I wish I would have been long it. I just, like I said, I couldn't stomach it. I made some money right in some puts. Obviously, I wish I would have reinitiated after I covered, but it's been a really good stock here for the last like month and a half, really. I mean, it was running up before the earnings report, and then it had the gap and go. And the shorts are caught on this. Where now, if you're coming in now, you're so late to the party. It was $220 at the beginning of October, so 1 month ago. Now it's $355. So I can't see chasing it here, but I think there's still shorts that are just getting the hell squeezed out of them. And that's why the stock seems to go up every single day, no matter what the market does.
Let's talk LK here. We're getting a lot of people in the chat talking about Luckin Coffee here. They must
Reported.
be drinking a lot of coffee over there in China.
Yeah, earnings this morning, Q3 adjusted EPS, 32-cent loss versus a 37-cent loss estimate. So beat on that. Sales missed by a smidge, 208 versus $211 million. They talked about investing in branding and marketing, and because of that, fees are going to be relatively high, but will return to normal next year.
Nice move. We can actually couple everybody from China who reported last night is actually doing pretty good because we had HUYA report and it's trading up 4%. We also had a YY report and it's trading up 5%. So the three major companies from China that reported here overnight and this morning, all trading higher.
For Luckin Coffee here, if you're lucky enough to be long, I'd see what happens at this $22 area. You had a high back in October at 21.86, and then you stuck your head above it a few times. You had 22 right on the nose on September 20th, then 22.10 the following day. We're inching up towards that area. So see what happens at 22. It'd be a nice target if you came in long anywhere from the October low above 22. Boom, maybe look closer to 23. See 22.68, 22.94. But let's see if someone has an opinion here at $22 in LK.
Huge level. As much as 18 was a huge level, which we talked about, I believe, yesterday or the day before, 22 is huge as well. So that's the range it's been in the last month and a half. Can it break out of that? That's why if you're coming in buying this 21.82 this morning, you're buying the top of the range. I never make a lot of money buying the top of the range.
S&P is still down 9 here, 30.83. We're just trying to get back over mid-range here this morning.
We've had some good reports. Like I'm just looking through some of those. I know we talked about CSIQ being a disappointment, but we got a retailer, which is the start of retail earnings season. Goose is trading up 6.5%. We had the Datadog last night, DDOG, trading up 13% here in the pre-market. So we've got Energizers trading up. It's energizing them at the stock a little bit here, trading up 7% in the pre-market. We got some pretty good reports here this morning, like some stocks trading higher.
Yeah, the one I wanted to look at though was none of those. That was a Smile Direct Club. This is their first. This is their first report since the IPO. Let's see how the market likes an EPS beat, a sales beat, and a guidance in line with estimates. actually a guidance above estimates.
I got to see the pre-market chart. Show me the pre-market chart on this one.
You know what it looks like.
Well, it's down 8%, but I don't know if it's been lower or where. I'm bringing this up early for.
Yeah.
How low did we get?
Well, after spiking up to
$10.
11.95. Yeah, I know that's just sticking out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
That's
$10,
$9.88.
$10. Got to hold there. If it doesn't hold there, Katie by the door, you could see the lows.
Yeah, the actual low is if it's $9, 905 has been the all-time low in this one, but you did have a 1005 low, and that coincides with the pre-market low. Other lows in the $9 handle, but looks like you have some institutional underwriters there at between the 9 and 10 range, which is quite a
It's a huge level for the stock.
Yeah, yep. It's not one of the better I prefer.
Just like Invisalign, isn't it?
Yes,
it is.
Yeah, competitor. Okay, so done with that one.
All right, so you mentioned a few that were good. Datadog was good. Fiverr was good. Canada Goose, man, is it cold this morning?
Holy.
So
this is the coldest morning in November that I can remember. We were 1 degree Fahrenheit here in Windsor, which I'm actually south of Spencer and Joel. I joke about that, but we're basically the same. GOOS trading up 6% here in the pre-market. So it's a good report. Again, man, these things are range bound here, Joel. That 37 was huge where it got to 2 days ago. 36 to 37 is all the support. And if you want to know where resistance, it's very well defined. It's up at 44.
Yeah.
And look where it gets to last night. Where does it get to?
Yeah, it only got to 43 last night.
Okay, not quite to the 44.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really holding, just a few days ago, this was at 45. I don't know what the big was. There a downgrade or something, or street leaning the wrong way into this report? 45.09 was your high on the 5th. Goes that day at 42.80, and then boom, 37. Let me see if I can find a daily.
There was a downgrade last week.
Oh, okay. Wow. They I don't know. That's a wicked looking sell off there for 45 down to 37.
And then a wicked looking rally back up here this morning. So your range 37 to 44. That's been the range. So I'm selling the top and buying the bottom. Tell it breaks out one way or the other. So at 41, you're in the middle. No trade.
Okay.
Swinging up pitches in the dirt again here. 2 buybacks to announce. ADP last night announced a $5 billion buyback, and USB also announced a buyback here, $2.5 billion. Neither of these stocks really responding much to it. ADP traded up about 50 cents last night on it. They have not been responding to buybacks. We've talked about the show in the last 2 years. It seems like the response to some of these buybacks is almost non-existent. I don't know why that is, but they just don't seem to move much off them anymore. The announcement, that is.
Party City halted here. Did you see this stock from a few days ago? Halted, news pending. Party City, it had a bad Halloween, went from $6.50 to $2. It tried to recover.
Yikes.
Yeah. I wonder what's going on.
Maybe they're going
here.
the way of Dean Foods.
Oh, can you believe that? People aren't drinking milk anymore?
Gone. DF off the board.
Yeah, unbelievable. I don't know. We'll have to see what this news is in Party City. Hopefully it's good news for shareholders. Do we got some more earnings to cover from last night?
We have a couple more. Let's look at Skyworks Solutions, SWKS, from yesterday. Their earnings was good. They beat on both the top and the bottom line, and their guidance for the first quarter, sales guidance was in line. EPS guidance was higher.
What a run the stock has been on. So expectations very high. I mean, the stock was $80 a month ago. It got up to $102 yesterday, $102.87. So, this is just a victim of expectations of running up so much into the report that they were really going to need to blow it away to go higher, and they didn't absolutely blow it away. With that being said, the stock has clearly been in an uptrend, so I would expect buy the dippers to come in. And that why not at that 94.59 level? I'm looking at where it gapped up. I don't know what the news was. Maybe Apple earnings?
Yeah,
that might have been Apple earnings.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, because these things move off Apple, major Apple supplier.
Yep.
So maybe that was the Apple earnings, the gap up that day. I mean, I think you got some support down there at that 94.59 low from that day after Apple earnings.
Yeah, but I think look out if you don't hold that. You got a gap to fill down to 91.06, and then the low on that previous day was 89.29. We are currently trading at 96.10, so we are off the pre-market low, 94.12. So there's a good area for you in SWKS.
All right, here's one we got to hit this morning. Tilray, after the close yesterday, they reported earnings. EPS, they lost 36 cents per share. Are supposed to lose 30 cents a share, so they missed that estimate. Sales, 51 million versus 49.5 million dollars, so they barely beat the sales estimate there. And here's what you've been talking about, Dennis. Average net selling price per gram last quarter, $3.25, down from $6.21 in the same quarter last year.
Competition. There was somebody yesterday saying on CNBC, oh, there's demand. There's a lot of demand. Well, there's a lot more supply.
There is
tell you that. There's demand, but there's a lot more supply. The supply is coming from everywhere, guys, in these stocks. And they're trading. Most of them don't make money. Some of them obviously are, and I thought, they showed a little bit of life a few days ago.
I know.
Life was sold so quickly. I mean, there was the first good day. We're looking 3 days ago when CGC had the nice candle, and you saw Kronos have an okay candle. So it took 1 day before they're like, sell, 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 sell. These things have so much overhead supply. There are so many people caught in these things that every time they get even a little sniff of a rally, they hit the hell out of it. Kronos was trading up on its earnings yesterday. What do? They turn around and hit the hell out of it. They just do not want to own these stocks whatsoever. Tax loss selling is coming. I mean, at a certain point, are they buys? Yeah, but where is that point? The valuations are still nosebleed. Competition is still killing them. And every time we get a little bit of a rally, they just get smacked right back down. So that's telling me that, I don't want to be long.
Yep, and you got CGC reporting too.
When's that coming? This week?
I thought it was tomorrow.
I think it is coming. It's it's 15th is what Daily Swinger's saying. So I guess if they blow it away or something, maybe that's okay. But again, even when they're beating, like Afri had a pretty good numbers. It took a day or two and they hit it back down. Kronos is okay. It takes an hour and they hit it back down. It is very, very, very difficult to be long these stocks for any, technical reason.
Did you see?
I don't know what the argument is really for being long these technically.
Did you see where the Kronos got to also? I talked about the 5 consecutive highs between 843 and 860.
Right up there.
850. Right.
And these are wicked little short squeezes too. Like, I mean, that thing opened down and then it ripped up and it makes you think, oh, maybe this is it. I mean, Kronos went down to 771 and then the next 20 minutes ripped up to 850. You're talking about a 10% move that had in like 10 minutes. And what happened? 2 hours later, it gives all back. There's just so many people who are crushed in these stocks that every time they sniff a rally, that there's just a bazillion sellers above. These are so victims of overhead supply. From a technical basis, there's too much overhead supply. From a fundamental basis, there's too much competition. I'm going to keep saying that I think rallies to be sold in pot stocks.
And I'm going to maintain that long term, I'm bullish on the industry, but it's hard to come in now. Well,
yeah, but there's arguments of why, if you're bullish the industry, I mean, these things have gotten really, came really down from the lows. I just think that we're not done yet. I think we're in this, and I've talked about this lots of time on the show. You get in these gaps where, the value guys are not interested in any of this stuff because the multiples don't make any sense. So they're not going to be your buyers. The growth guys who are in this story, the Momo traders, are all out too because this doesn't have it. So who's the buyers? So until it gets to a point where valuation starts to make sense, where is the floor? I mean, I look at these things, Tilray, how do you value that? It doesn't make any money. It loses significant amounts of money. They have the per gram cost went from 621 to 325. That doesn't sound like growth. That sounds like scary. So here it is, 21.15. It's down again. If you're thinking it's going back to $300, you're thinking wrong, in my opinion. I don't think it's ever getting back to 300. I don't think it's ever getting back to 200. I don't think it's ever getting back 100. They say never. I'm saying never. And in my opinion, these are never getting back there. It was just, just a short squeeze from all hell, probably buy-ins going on when it got to 300. So if you buy at 21 thinking, oh, eventually it's going back to 300, I think you're wrong. I think this thing could be a $10 stock, a $5 stock even. That's my opinion. I don't know what the path to get there is, but I don't think the valuation still makes any sense at 21. Until they show me they can start making good money, I can't value them.
Okay, Triple D, any closing thoughts here? We're going to kick off the 9 o'clock hour. We're going to bring Sean Udall from Quantum Trading Strategies in here. But any final thoughts, Dennis, here on the sell-off here?
Just if you're looking at imbalances here, Disney, which had a pretty good day yesterday, a pretty good launch. I know they had some hiccups with the stock, didn't seem to care because it was trading up on a week tape. We do have another 79,000 shares to buy. I'm going to keep saying 140 is huge for this stock. I don't know if it's going to test it today, but if you were long it and you're buying the dip, think about that 140 level. That is big. I'm still long in the long-term portfolio, sticking with that. But if I had it on for a trade, I would think about lightening up in the higher 139s if it gets up there. Square 42,000 to buy, just because it's different, so that's why I'm mentioning it. Johnson Johnson 51,000 to sell. Some of your banks are weaker. The TLT is up, so expect your banks to show weakness. Expect some of your utility stocks to show a little bit of life, which they've been in the gutter to a certain extent. So maybe this TLT rally here this morning can help them a bit. All those relationships we're going to talk about in New York on Tuesday.
All right. Thank you, Triple D. We are joined here by Patrick Lane. He's head of corporate events here at Benzinga. And first of all, congratulations on your Evansville Purple Aces.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if we have many sports fans here, but they took down Kentucky last night. So that was one of the bigger upsets we've had in college basketball. But we're not here to talk to you about college basketball. We're here to talk to you about the Benzinga FinTech Awards. You've been working feverishly on that. We get some updates here. What's going on? We got some new guests. Tell us what's going on, Patrick.
Will do, man. Will do. And first of all, thank you very much. My Purple Aces don't get a lot of credit these days. So I'm also from Kentucky. I'm a Louisville fan. So
I still love you.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. But knocking Kentucky off after they had the #1 seed for exactly one day was all the sweeter. So listen, the FinTech Awards are coming up next Tuesday. Really appreciate you guys having us on. A couple of really interesting things that we're going to be talking about. The zero commission trading panel that we're going to have, the head of product, Nick LaMena at TradeStation, the American CEO of Webull, Anthony Denier is going to be there. Catherine St. John from Trading Central, among others, right? I think Neil Ray, also the head of corporate development at TD Ameritrade, is going to be on that panel. So, as the market shifts, as these brokerages are in some cases struggling to catch up to demand and catch up to, the sort of the race for consumers, it's going to be really interesting to see how they're evolving, what they're rolling out next. TradeStation announcing they're going to add crypto to their platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
John Bartleman will be there talking about that. TradingView, many of you know them. I think they run all the charts on Benzinga Pro, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are announcing a partnership with Alpaca to add zero commission trading as well. So a lot of really interesting things, especially for the folks in this chat to come and listen to.
And a great venue. We had it.
It's great, man.
Yeah, the New World Stages had, beautiful venue. We were going to have the main room with, with all the panels and the speakers on there. I'm going to be doing a Q&A with Gene Munster. I believe you guys changed the time on me on it.
I'm so sorry, man. Yeah. No, it's not too early. At least it's not like a super early one.
It'll be good. But Gene, I'm going to be picking his brain about, FinTech. Someone's been following the FinTech industry for a long time. And
ton of insights too, that guy. Obviously, Apple, Tesla.
Yep. Got
that
a
guy
lot
knows
of
his stuff.
questions for him. And so we're starting at 11:30 now, correct?
Correct. We
Okay.
are 11:30. And you guys, Joel and Dennis, you guys are set up in your own room too.
Yep.
So yeah, you'll be on the stage with Gene at one point in the morning, but obviously we'll have you talking, to you guys hopefully are coming to the PreMarket Prep lounge all day long.
Okay. All right. Patrick Lane, running corporate events here at Benzinga, joining us. Maybe we'll get you on one more time. Maybe
Let's
on
do it.
Friday. When are you leaving, on Monday or?
Yeah, Monday.
Okay.
Monday midday.
Okay.
Thank you, brother. You guys have a good day.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. And do we have Mr. Udall on the line, or do you need to bring him in?
He's here. Let me bring him in 1 second. He joined us now for this bonus hour of PreMarket Prep. Sean, good morning, and let's see if we can see your face here.
Good morning. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you. Look at
There
that.
we go.
No. Good morning, Benzinga.
Oh yeah, you know, I kind of slipped that up. Sorry.
All right. So how you doing today? A little bit of Trump talk late yesterday and overnight has the futures in the red here by 8 3/4. I know you're a big sentiment guy. I know you do technical indicators. I'll give you my thoughts here on the overall market, then you could tell me, what you're looking at. It just looks a little tired here. I mean, this rally just looks like, yeah, you still got buyers, you're still going up, but you're getting smaller daily ranges. There's sellers out there, not new aggressive shorts getting out there, but it looks like there's people more than willing to take profits up at these levels. That doesn't mean we're going down or anything. So tell us what your indicators and your technical indicators and what your sentiment indicators are telling us here about the recent rally.
Yeah, maybe we didn't talk about that as much. I thought we mentioned this a little last time, but basically, the indices are pretty overbought. It's kind of interesting though. So like things I pay attention to, a lot of the oscillators, McClellan oscillators, NIMO, NAMO, all that stuff. And what's interesting is, so the traditional sort of technical indicators, things like MACDs, RSIs, especially on daily charts on the indices are pretty extended. I mean, they're basically kind of as high as they usually get, right? Now, sometimes they kind of reset because they kind of move sideways over time. And so then the overbought condition becomes less overbought and you can kind of recharge a little bit higher. That's kind of what I think is happening, because in fact, I was looking at my NIMO, NAMO, and I have my own proprietary sentiment score. It's basically flat neutral. So it's not hot, it's not cold, and that's usually in other words, it usually doesn't look like this before a bigger drop. Although I can't say it never has, but generally when it looks like this, you kind of have you usually get a little drop. Like I'm kind of waiting for the day or 2 or 3 day deal where the Nasdaq's down. I don't, you tell me, 100, 150, 200 points, something like that. And then it's enough to tip everybody and go, oh boy, I better sell stocks now. The same guys who are buying stocks at highs. Oh, I better sell now. I better put some stops in. And then lo and behold, you don't get much follow through selling. And that's kind of what it feels like to me. But yeah, definitely feels tired. We're definitely overbought on pretty much any traditional indicator, but sentiment is not hot. There's only one sentiment gauge, and it's actually a pretty good one. It's CNN's Fear and Greed Index. That's pretty hot. In fact, I think I saw it hit at 80, 85 or 90 a couple days ago. But yeah, a lot of my traditional sentiment stuff is not I would say
not ringing an alarm.
No, exactly. Not ring the bell. The only one I was going to say is put call. Put call shows very little fear. But you can't really use that one standalone. A lot of people make the mistake of using that as a standalone indicator. It doesn't work that well by itself.
So you kind of like to see, when the market gets to this point, you like to see like the one like hard down day and then see how it reacts on the rebound. Like let's say like there's no big sellers out there right now. We're near all-time highs, sold off last night. You come back. So before the turn, you like to have the market give you one day where it tells you, hey, we're a little bit nervous, and then see how it reacts from that day.
Yeah, 1, 2, so sometimes it's just like, or you can just see how lots of stocks are acting. I mean, here's the other thing that's happening. I think this is what is confusing a lot of people. So I've been harping on this potential rotational value setup for a long time. And by and large, it's largely happened this year. I mean, if you look at, FANG is kind of dancing around highs, all-time highs. But I mean, hey, if you bought the FANG stocks near highs in 2018, you're down 2 years without making much money. So, and that includes Apple. And if you were an NVIDIA buyer, 250 to 300, you're down on that. So anyway, the bottom line is there are other parts of the market that are starting to act better. Value tech in particular has had a really good 2-3 week period. But biotech kind of has a pulse for the first time in God, I don't know how long biotech's been trading bad.
Okay, let's talk.
Go ahead.
I did see in the chat a little bit earlier, I'm not sure if you're still around, Biogen. Gap up here on the latest round of a drug that I thought they had discontinued testing, spiked up. That spike's been sold, but now quiet consolidation here. I guess from a technical standpoint, as long as it holds above that gap area, I guess we're still good to go north. But also, you can look at it as like it didn't hold the gains from that gap day, a little bit tired. I mean, it's really hard to make calls on biotech stocks.
That's a tough. I mean, honestly, that was one of those stocks I was thinking was pretty darn attractive. In fact, I'm looking at it. I mean, 220, 230. Now, it was at that price range for a couple quarters. But hey, if you weren't that worried about the downside of it, pretty, arguably one of the best biotech stocks in the world. So you kind of just had to hold it for good news. They kind of had a lot of bad news priced in. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know, to me, that one's kind of a no man's land. However, it probably does go higher. Yeah, that drug could be huge. Their pipeline's still very good too. The biotech group, we'll have to see. What I think is going to happen, by the way, I think you might agree with this, is biotech probably has a pulse. Then as you get closer to year end, you have a lot of tax loss selling in it. But biotech could be a very good January effect trade going into next year. So, you kind of buy it into various waves of December selling, and then you might be set up pretty good for a pretty good Q1 for biotech next year. Beyond Q1, I literally have no idea.
All right, you did mention you're getting a shout out here from Spinner on DXC. You made a call on DXC last week on our show here.
Yeah.
Yep, that is DXC Technology Company. Don't know anything about it. Nice spike up here yesterday. Give them a little back. I see this high at 36.52. What did you get to yesterday? 36.32. So another leg, got to get over that 36.50 level. How are you looking at this after earnings?
Well, this is one of those very cheap, just incredibly beaten up stocks. Now, I don't know if it should have been trading at highs 2 years ago, but just to let people, this is a piece of the old Hewlett Packard, which combined with CSC, Computer Sciences Corp. So kind of old school tech, old school software, very stable, big customer base, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, it's you tell me, man. I mean, look at that teasing gap right there. You've got what is that? 38 to almost 50. That's pretty tempting. This is one. It was very small. Was very small for me. In fact, I probably should have been in a little bit more of it if you remember, I kind of said, let's see the report. And then if you get another like a bad report that barely gets sold or
right,
is kind of flat, right? Like I was kind of hoping for a bad report that was flat. This thing just reversed and went up like 15%. So it kind of takes the post earnings trade, makes it. Some people like this, by the way, for post earnings trade. Some people feel, hey, it's a way better buy now than it was at 28. I'm not really in that camp. But some people look, this stock went up 15% on another, moderately poor report that did show signs, though, pretty much a bottom. But yeah, that gap there is pretty tempting. I mean, just so you know, this is a cheap stock at $50. So, very cheap stock at $50.
And then it went to 40, and then it went to 30, then it went to 20. But
and that's what cheap stocks do now. We get these crazy moves. We get these crazy moves, and like a stock will end up trading, I don't know, half or 25% of kind of a rational value. MTSI, kind of one of my prime 5G candidates. I've been talking about that stock for at least a year, if not two. They had, I would argue, they had maybe one of their they had their first beat and raise quarter in many quarters last
What
night.
stock was that?
MTSI.
Oh yeah, I remember you told me about this.
Yep. So I mean, I was buying this stock as low as $13, you know, give or take 20 cents or something, but as low as $13. I don't really want to sell it at all. My price target's 35 to 40. I think it could trade notably higher. This is another, remember when we were talking about Lazard last week? And so it kind of looked toppy on the daily chart. Then when you went out to a weekly chart, you're like, wait, this is way below multi-year low highs. MTSI has that same view. So I mean, it's basically kind of at 52-week highs. However, it's I think the 3-4 year high is like $65.
What's the
So
on,
anyway, go ahead.
at Lazard? What's the symbol on that one again?
LAZ was Lazard.
Yeah, that's just, if this thing can get above 39 here, it's bumped his head up a couple times. 39 be definitely a key for another leg higher. It's trading down 23 cents. Tomorrow, NVIDIA earnings. So nice run up here in the stock, over $200. I'm getting some of those losses back. Maybe I could figure a quick 50% retracement. All-time high in this, 293. How low did we get? We got to 125.
130? Was that 130 from 300? Something like that? 120 something?
Yeah, this is a little bit tougher math for me. But I'll be figuring, I mean, it's had a really just a steady climb up here since in October going into earnings here. For me, I would think they'd really needed to blow it away to get another leg higher. I know you've been super bearish the stock. It didn't get quite low enough for you to buy it. Where you're looking at this thing at the $200 area.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I still don't really want to be short it. I mean, it was probably one of my top short names, a number of, well, pretty much anything above 250. I thought it was just a raging short. I mean, this, you know, my basic thesis on this was simple. When it was trading as an expensive software company, I thought it was crazy because it was a chip company. So now it's not trading as an expensive software company, but it's still trading as a very expensive chip company. But it's, you know, hey, if they start beating, if the data center cycle kicks in again, you know, I could see the stock kind of getting back into the low to mid 200. So I don't really think it sets up as a good short. You know what? It might just do a Skyworks. So you guys have probably talked about Skyworks already this morning. Skyworks really is only down today because it's been up so much recently.
Exactly.
So you know, the numbers are fine. You know, that their business with Apple's great. You know, their end markets are great. They do have very solid 5G exposure going forward. And we've talked a lot about 5G, but you know, the stock's down 6% just because it was you know, should it really have traded 102 pre-report? That, you know, I mean, 85 to 90 pre-report is pretty decent for the stock. So, you know, it's kind of one of these things where, you know, we'll see what happens. But NVIDIA could kind of do a Skyworks, like you just said. Is there a report that's good enough
to do
that
it?
really, you know, that gives you another 10% upside short term? I just don't know.
Just really interesting here too. I did mention that 50% retracement from that all-time high. That all-time high was made in October of 2018 at 292.76. The washout decline took you down to 124.46. Halfway back, folks, 209. So if that was your target, you got done yesterday, went to 211.86. The actual number is 208.61, but I'll round it off here to 209. So we did close above 209 yesterday at 209.61. We're down back in the 208 handle. We'll see. I mean, it'd be nice for it to close above that 209, but a lot depending on the report. You know what, a stock I've never asked you about, AMD. And I can remember losing money on like 3 calls. I had the 3 calls. This must have been back in 15 or 16 or whatever. Finally cleared at 34.5 level. Your thoughts on AMD?
Well, I mean, AMD, I've been more wrong than right on this. I haven't lost much money personally, but I've kind of viewed it as a good short. And I've really only caught like, you know, one good short on it. I mean, it's actually been a tough stock to short. because the bad news just doesn't seem to drop it much. And I mean, the most minor of good news can make the stock go up. So it's just, we see this a lot. I mean, it's not dissimilar to NVIDIA when, everybody kind of felt they needed to own it. Everybody didn't think it was, everybody thought that, hey, I'm going to buy a high and sell it higher. There's a few of these stocks I've owned in the past when I like the name and I can create a fundamental thesis that where I don't think the stock is egregiously overvalued. I honestly don't really get the love for AMD here. I mean, in retrospect, it was a hell of a stock, 10 and below. I did like the stock years ago. It's basically AMD's completely flip-flop for me. So a few years ago, I want to say it's like 2016 or 17. I was like, why is AMD 4 or less? It just didn't make any sense. It was like the stock is so cheap on any metric. Yeah, they lost a little bit of money, but their losses were never terrible. And they had a very solid market position. And it just didn't make any sense between 250 and 4. Well, now it's 36 and it doesn't make any sense again. so it made sense when it went from 4 to 16 or maybe even 20 or something. But I don't know. I mean, here's the one thing I'd say about, AMD. If you like AMD, then you should love any chip stock that I like. So I mean, something like a Vicor or something, again, MTSI, Qualcomm. I mean, look at SYNA. I mean, everybody hated SYNA, couldn't give it away at 27 to 30 bucks. It's almost 60 now. So there's actually lots of chip companies that with much faster growth rates than AMD that sell at a huge discount to AMD. And that's just the way it is in every sector most of the time. But this is one of those glaring examples that, hey, and I'm not saying AMD can't go higher. They're gaining share. They've got some good product cycles going. But it kind of feels like an NVIDIA when it already had gone up too much, but you didn't know where the high was going to be.
All right, let's take a look at that Qualcomm. You been pounding the table on this one for a long time. Have you been lightening up into this rally at all?
I did. Most of my Qualcomm position at this point, I don't know when I transitioned from this. Probably when the stock made the first big move from the 50s to the 80s or 90s the first time before it's sold off 2 or 3 times since. But I've largely transitioned to sort of a leap along, a larger leap position. And I've got a bunch of different prices, anywhere from 85s to 105s. But my biggest holdings are between 90, 95, and 100. And I think I sold about a third of it. I still have the majority, still have 2/3, maybe even a little more. But I did take some off the table, really good report. I do think this goes up. I think what's holding the stock back is we just don't have a final resolution to the FTC. So, there's still potential risk of, the FTC. I think most of the government agencies, by the way, that have weighed in, have basically weighed in against the FTC decision. So I don't know what they're waiting for. I think somebody could just basically repeal that decision, somebody being like the executive branch or somebody. I think they're just waiting for it to go through due process and the court cycles and things like that. Again, my price target's 133. It's been 133 for a while. Stock's been pretty good. It's almost a double off of low cost basis. And that's where I own the bulk of it, is like in that 53 area. But I bought this, this is one stock I'm pretty aggressive on sell-offs. So that sell-off down into the, 65, sub 65 area, I thought was very attractive. There've been several nice sell-offs. I think recently it traded around 68 or something. That was a good area to buy. So, I'm not really a buyer here. I'm just kind of letting it rest. I don't know though, after that quarter, man, I don't know if the stock's really going to have a lot of downside unless you get some real negative headlines on, again, their patent stuff with the FTC.
All right. Let's shift gears here a little bit. I believe Walmart has earnings coming up. One of the retailers, the strong of the strong here, trading up 33 cents and 119.45. Just bump it up here against all-time highs. I know it's not a tech stock for you, but man, looking at report, looking the way the stock has rallied here, I put this another one in the category that needs to blow it away. Do you ever follow something as boring as Walmart?
Yeah, I used to. I want to say the last time I thought that stock was super attractive, it was probably $68. I don't mind it. I usually can find something I like better. So I think it's as simple as that. I usually can find something I like better valuation, a little sexier, little moves a little faster, things like that. Better trading stock.
People are asking here about ADPN here, and boy, oh boy, some people are getting roasted in this one. Had a huge day yesterday and just rallied. ADPN, let me look at the rally from yesterday. And they rally like $15, and then they come out and they do a secondary today at 5.25. So I don't know what happened yesterday.
I don't know that one. Yeah, that's not in my wheelhouse.
No way. I mean, that's basically giving back all of its move from yesterday and more. If they had some sources familiar with the company, price on a secondary, and I don't know why it went up like that yesterday. It's also a reverse stock split, so I just keep an eye on 5.25. That's the offering price. S&Ps got to mid-range, trailed off here, down 11.25 at 30.81. So we're going to be heading into the open here in just a few minutes. Let's try and move on here. We're getting a lot of you got your charts up there, Sean? Is there something?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to. In fact, I even had somebody pinging me in one of my other I think DMing me on Twitter. Yep. They wanted to see this thing. So here's MTSI. And again, we can spend as much or little time as a few of these names as you want, or whatever you want to pull up. So see, it's basically 52-week highs. Boom, 5-year chart. Doesn't look so pricey anymore on a chart basis. I mean, it's a cheap stock, but two huge moves down. So just so everybody knows, the highs on MTSI were basically the top of the 4G cycle. So this is one that, again, what I always tell people, sometimes you can get too mechanical. Like, you want to absorb a lot of information, but at the end of the day, you want your creative mind to stay active. Well, look, if MTSI did that during the 4G cycle, well, what do you think they might do during the 5G cycle? Now, it's not, you can't just bet your life on something like a statement like that. The company has to deliver. But my assertion is that this company will have a stronger 5G cycle than they had a 4G cycle. And it was a hell of a 4G name.
All right. It looks like it's just trying to bust out here over 25. I see where you got that line drawn across there. Nice consolidation. And did they already report? Did they have?
They reported last night. So I mean, this is one I'm praying for another dip to buy. I mean, I've been buying dips pretty much since this move right here. I think I started buying this around 2022 the first time. It might have been a little higher, but got very aggressive on this stock, sort of in the low to mid teens. And I've paired some off. I mean, when you get plus 70, plus 80% against low cost basis, you got to take some off the table. At the same time, it's still pretty meaty. It's one of my largest 5G positions. So it's probably my number. It's either equal with my other 5G positions in size, or it's like my third or fourth largest 5G position.
What are some of the other 5G stocks you like?
Well, Qualcomm is kind of the no-brainer. Now Qualcomm could be oh, did I just lose something here? Oh, there it goes. Qualcomm could almost be an interesting, if you look, I want to say this stock's actually close to all-time highs. So there's the whole history. This is a trading view chart. By the way, I do like trading view for charts and stuff. So I guess on this chart, it shows a little below all-time highs. I think if you include dividends, it is at all-time highs.
Okay.
Now, what did Microsoft do when they broke new all-time highs? They didn't go down, did they? They went up. What did I don't know. What did NVIDIA do when they broke their all-time highs? They went up a lot. I mean, it's almost a weird chart, really. Look, I mean, it's hard to see where the all-time highs were before. I think it was like $40. Yeah, $40. I'm not saying Qualcomm's going to do that, but I would say my 133. You get a positive FTC resolution. I think my 133 target's going to end up looking pretty conservative.
What about Nokia? If we're talking,
they got hammered recently. I just don't follow this one as much. Here's the 1 year. It's weird because Ericsson has been reporting pretty well and their stocks held in. I honestly don't. I need to go back and look. This is a name I've never really liked, so I never really have spent a ton of time. They bought a lot of assets they probably shouldn't have bought. Honestly, this might be an okay buy here. I remember looking at the stock hard like 2-3 years ago before I kind of made my whole 5G list. And there was a few things I think they need to divest stuff. I think if the problem is the areas that they're getting leverage from 5G are great, but they're only enough to kind of keep revenues flat. Like they have legacy parts of their business that are just bleeding. And so I don't know. I don't know that it's kind of a tough situation for them. Like I said, there's other names I'd rather be in personally. Here's one that reported yesterday. IIVI 26 is the name. This has been great trading stock for me. I bought a little more of this yesterday. A couple of analysts down, price target lower today. Typical kind of cycle. But my thesis on this one's simple. I think they basically stole Finisar assets for a very, very cheap price. I think they'll end up monetizing the Finisar portfolio very well. In fact, far better than Finisar probably would have done it. This company is very good at buying stocks and integrating them. In fact, that's kind of here. Let's do an all. I mean, here's an all chart on IIVI. A lot of this growth, and it's kind of, it's a volatile stock, but a lot of this growth over time has been because they've been a very excellent integrator of M&A. That's kind of been their history. So I don't see why the Finisar deal would be any different than a lot of their prior deals.
what about Datadog? Datadog.
I almost bought that just as a pre-earnings kind of, first report post IPO, usually pretty good. I personally didn't do anything on it. I figured it would work, but it's 20, I think it's 20 times forward. I just have a hard time buying these stocks when they're 20 or 25 times forward sales. So I typically have plenty of things working, so I don't feel the need to trade every name that's reporting. So,
right.
This is one. Yeah, I could have done it. If I would have played it, it definitely would have been long. Didn't do it. Move on to the next idea.
Okay, I'm looking at this one. It's having a nice gap up. As Sean mentioned, it's a recent IPO. IPO day high 41.44. Big old range in that day. Closed at 37.55, and that was the all-time closing high. It was kind of lights out on that. So current high is right at 39.75. So Swan, if you want this rally, if you want this thing to get over 40, hold 40 first 15 minutes, and then go up and challenge that all-time high. Let's go to some legacy tech that is reporting after the close, and the Cisco Kid.
Cisco. Well, Cisco is a very important stock. So what do you think? What do you think? In fact, let me pull up a. Stock's done pretty good last 5 years. Here's a 1 year.
Yep.
What's your call, Joel?
My call, I like the monthly support here. It looks like you just got a bottom in the stock over the last 4 months at the 45.5, 46 area. So I don't know if I, go long into the report on it, but if they got shellacked again, that would be the support I'm looking for. And it looks like if they can, have a good report, clear 49, I think you easily, 50 and beyond on this one, but gave you a lot of time to buy it between 45.5 and 46.5. But it's had a good run, good monthly support. You just want to see that monthly support hold.
Yeah, I mean, this is so. What were we just talking? We're just talking about Walmart. I mean, I'd much rather own Cisco than Walmart. Again, current prices. 3 years ago, if you'd asked me that question, I don't know if my answer would have been the same. But right here, right now, I'd much rather own Cisco. And again, I think people get confused over 5G because some companies come out and they report and they have pretty strong like Xilinx had 2 or 3 really hot kind of quote unquote 5G levered quarters a couple quarters ago. Well, that was all China. They were, that was Huawei double ordering from them, maybe even triple ordering from them.
What do you mean? I mean, what do you mean by that? Like,
well, basically Huawei kind of correctly saw that they're going to have a hard time getting product from the US. So they pretty much ordered as much as they could ahead of time.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So now, in fact, Xilinx's last call was that they pretty much have, I think they've assumed like zero business from Huawei, which is overly conservative. They'll get some, but I think they've assumed zero business from Huawei for, until there's a China deal or something like that. I can't remember their exact quote, but people get, weird. I don't even know if we're in any one for 5G. Qualcomm has a ton of 5G assets and they just bought, they not too long ago, they bought Acacia, which was that was one of my top 5G names. So that's ACIA. The chart's dull now because it's stuck at their kind of $2 below their buyout price or something. But no, I think Cisco could be a surprising stock. Just like, you had 4 years to buy Microsoft at 32 or below. I mean, I might even be right. Was it 25 and below? And then when it went, when it finally worked, it really went. Could Cisco kind of do a Microsoft? I think 5 years from now, I think the stock's a lot higher than it is today. I don't love this stock, but relative to other things, I could own it.
All right, just real quick here. S&Ps did open lower. They were headed for that pre-market low at 75.75. It's always a good level to keep an eye on. But buy the dippers came in here at 78. I really don't have a relevant number for you. Now you've got a nice pop. I don't know if we've had, Powell, current policy stance likely to remain appropriate. So you got Mr. Powell talking on the Hill, or this might even be a pre-release of his statement. So
isn't he? He's talking to the Senate or House today or something, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
What about, and someone asked this question here in the chat. I think it's like almost impossible question to answer here, but what if we don't get a trade deal here with China? There's a lot of overtures. Like, you think they're absolutely going to kill the market, or, I don't know. Through this whole thing, I think the market's held up pretty well. I don't know. I still think that China wants to string it out to the election, but I know you really don't factor any of that stuff into your.
I honestly, I can't say. It's not that I don't care, and I probably pay as much attention to as anybody because it definitely affects a lot of my stocks. But if you kind of look at the reactions and then look at what the company's done and let's just take Micron as a great example. There was a time when that stock got hammered on a bunch of this China trade stuff. Well, it turns out that they're really not missing as much business from China as people had feared. Now, MTSI has lost more business. So the higher up a company is on the technology chain for 5G, the more restrictive the restriction is. I didn't say that very well, but you know what I mean, right? So if it's considered, assets that are, national security assets, Huawei can't buy them. But like a lot of RAM and DRAM and memory parts and old legacy tech parts, they can buy all that stuff. So I think people got confused. They're like, wait, there's going to be no sales to China. No, it's a pretty small subset of products that are heavily restricted. So, and honestly, people find workarounds. I think you and I talked about this. Didn't we have talked about this months ago that there's all these resellers, there's all these tech resellers around the world. So I think if there's if there's just like no China deal and we have a Chinese Cold War like we had with Soviet Union, well, guess what'll happen? People will sell stuff to resellers. The resellers will sell to other resellers, and eventually the tech or the products can find their way to a Chinese vendor. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to be tougher, but it's not like I don't think the business goes away. Ultimately, too, it does help. It does help some U.S. companies long term. Might be a little painful short term, but I kind of think a lot of this stuff is more theater. Honestly, I think I've said that a lot. There's just certain things, certain pieces of business are probably that are beneficial for both companies or countries are gonna get done. So, you know, I think we'll probably get a deal that, and we might get a series of deals. Maybe the first deal is skinny, then the next deal gets a little better. I think a lot's going to depend on who gets elected president.
Oh, for sure.
Like you said.
Moving into the election here. How about the short squeeze going on here in Tesla? Trading up $6 today. I know it's kind of hard for you to work your numbers and your magic on this one. But
yeah, it doesn't model well. I mean, some people put models. I don't know. I mean, you know what Tesla did do though? It got to a point where I'm like, look, I would no longer, if you're short, and I was recommending shorts on this much higher prices. I pretty much said, look, I'd cover like at 200, 220 and below. I was just like, look, I think you got to take your money. Now I could have flipped, and I you know, hindsight being 2020, at 200, I could have said, look, let's buy the thing. Don't really like it. Have other ideas, have other areas I'd rather spend my capital. But you know, I don't know. It's starting to eke into the area where the short radar is starting to tingle again. Put it that way. So, you know, I keep hearing the Porsche. Do you know the name of that Porsche car? That's all. Oh, I should. I always know it. Then I try to think of it on air. I can't. Anyway, the Porsche EV is sold out, and it's just perpetually sold out. So they're going to end up making a lot more of that car, and that competes at the expensive price point on the expensive Tesla's EVs. So I think you're going to start seeing more competition coming in. You know, if we could ever get me and Gene on at the same time, which I know you said you might be working on, that'd be fun. I think we could have an interesting debate about Tesla. But because my view isn't like, you know, the bear thesis is, well, the company's going to be bankrupt. They can't meet that. That's never really been my thesis. My thesis is, can they maintain their technological leadership edge once the higher end car makers come into their space? And my view is it's going to be much harder for them.
Are you talking about the, I believe it's pronounced Taycan?
Yes, that's it. So that, and that's really the first good EV competitor. I mean, you know, GM had an EV product. There's some hybrid products, but we haven't had a really, really good EV to compete with Tesla. And I would say the Porsche is probably a better vehicle.
Yeah, but 150 GER, man.
Well, but the Model S is 128.
Yeah,
128, 135. So yeah, that's the price point of the higher end Teslas.
Right. So
okay, so what's going to happen when you get the good Mercedes EV, and then what's going to happen when you get the really good Alpha EV? In other words, every company is going to try one, and then depending on the success of their one EV, okay, how many more EVs are we going to get? So I don't know. We'll see. I like I say, 400 at 400. I don't have a problem putting shorts on this again at all. It's like I say, it's starting to look more interesting, but they have pretty good momentum. Let the momentum play out. You know, let the chart tell you. You know, wait for it to start rolling over off of highs, and I think that sets up as an easier short.
All right, we were talking on our show about the marijuana sector not reacting well off these earnings reports. We talked about the extremely high valuations, perhaps the threat of end of year tax selling. I know you follow one PYX, and this one hasn't exactly been going your way. Do you still like this one, or are there any pot stocks that you could find any value in, being a value investor?
Well, I do like PYX. Now, I think I've always couched this and said, look, I like it for a spec position, meaning I like it for a small spec position. I mean, the valuation that doesn't. I mean, this is kind of like AMD. We're talking, you know, didn't make any sense between 250 and 4. And this is kind of the same. Doesn't really make any sense. But until there's more buyers than sellers, and until there's a reason for the algos not to raid the thing, it's not going to go up. It needs a catalyst. So what was the latest one to report? We had Tilray, right?
Cron was yesterday. Tilray was today. There was another one that Dennis mentioned that I think was trading up, and we have CGC tomorrow, I believe.
Okay, so I think if I were to assess the group, we had that guest on last week. You know, here's what I like. Look, can the stock go down on bad news? I mean, here's Tilray right here. Here's a 1 month chart. I don't know. It's holding in there today. I don't think that quarter was very good. It's not dropping on bad news. Look at this 1 year. Look at how this thing, I mean, it kind of looks like a dead person, right? This thing's flatlined down here, but I don't know. It's not going lower. I think we'll have to see how this goes, CGC. I mean, I have modeled these names on sort of like tech valuations. And when they were trading at like these crazy 100, 200X, I was like, look, they're lunacy. Well, now they're starting to get to, that's why I asked that guy about if he had a valuation floor. I don't have a valuation floor in the group, but they are starting to get to kind of price to sales metrics that at least they make sense. Like at least you can model them now. They're not cheap yet. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Sometimes, a lot of these things where I don't know the thesis super well, I'll just kind of let the chart tell me. I mean, again, the PYX is more of a long-term valuation catch-up play, but their CGC 1935. I mean, it hasn't dropped. I mean, as long as you weren't buying at 28. I mean, recently hasn't dropped a lot. We'll have to see how they do on their report. Isn't CGC the one that has the big investment backers like Constellation and stuff?
Yeah. Yep. They bought it. Yeah, that's what really got the whole sector going. I believe they entered that stock when it was in the 25-30 range, got over 50, and then Tilray went to 300 and kind of kicked things off. And then things went south when it couldn't, when it couldn't live up to those valuation.
Yeah. So Joel, you tell me. If CGC is the one with the bigger backers,
yes,
wouldn't that stock have to kind of lead the group out of the hole?
I think so. I think Constellation Brands might have also written off part of that investment too. So I don't know.
So maybe just watch CGC. And hey, if it gets to a point where it starts working, maybe the other names come back into play. That would be my guess. But this is not my core group at all. But I can look at the chart as well as anybody. If the stocks quit going down on bad news, usually at least there's a trade there. Doesn't mean there's the permanent low, but usually there's a trade.
And also, the tax loss selling here. I'm sure there'll be some.
I do agree with that. You have to, it's always amazing how much pressure you can get at the end of the year on even just retail tax loss selling, because if there's no buyers and the only orders are sell orders, what do the algos do? They're going to sell in front of the sell orders and then drive the stock down even further. So, and again, I don't hate algos. They're operating within their rules. So that gives you better opportunities. By the way, this could be another area for a really good January fact trade.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you buy lows, you buy December prices, and then you get a good pop in Q1.
Okay. All right. Looking at the early action here in the S&P 500 index futures. As I said, we did take out that pre-market low and got a nice bounce here, just hanging out just around mid-range on the sessions. I mean, how many times do you take a look at the index and the high and low are in for the day before the market even opens? And the actual open, we got pre-market high of 91.75, pre-market low of 75.75. And so far, we've traded within that range, 86.25 to 78 even. Moving on here, Sean. Let's see if there's some other stocks. I just want to mention this D-Dog has snuck over $40, trying to hold $40. This thing's all over the place, 40.70. Perhaps we're looking for the all-time high in this in 41.44. If you guys, we have just a few minutes left here with Sean Udall. If you have any stocks you want him and I to take a look at here in the remaining few minutes, we'll be glad to do that. Thanks for participating and putting stocks in the chat. I just want to ask you too, just kind of like a general question here. We talk about the short-term reaction to analyst ratings, sometimes during earnings season, not as much so. Do you have any favorite analysts that you pay attention to? Do you have some analysts that you like to fade, or do you just kind of see if you get things that are consistent with your own analysis?
That's a really good. That's a great. I mean, hey, I always paid attention to Gene Munster. So I guess that would be a favorite. I didn't always agree with him, but I definitely agreed more than I disagreed with him.
Okay.
I mean, there are guys I tend to think they are definitely better at their core job, which to me, they're supposed to trade. They're supposed to, be analytical and judge a company on fundamentals and not move their rating based on a large change in the price. That my single biggest beef on Wall Street is that it looks to me like most of the fundamental analysts are actually watching stock charts. And so if the stock is going up, they rate their rating and their price targets go up. If the stock price is going down, their fundamental thesis gets worse. And that's almost exactly the opposite of really how they should act.
Yep. We call that the analyst chase price theory. Let's cover a few more stocks. Zach, 157 is popping in here with, looks like TMO. And I'll pull the chart up on it. High price stock, Thermo Fisher Scientific. It looks like it had a gap up after earnings. I mean, holding 290 here. The longer it holds 290 and get a shot to get back over 300. Looks like you got a little bit of a seller at 300. It stopped at 290.90 the other day, but really a 290 to 300 trading range. I think you have to wait for either a breakdown below 290 or a definitive close above 300. Any thoughts on TMO?
I used to, when this was pre-TMO, when it was one of the companies that is now part of TMO, I used to follow this. I can't remember exactly the symbol at the time. I mean, this thing's been a monster. I don't know if I'm still on the screen share or you're doing it, but if you look at the monthly, now this is going back a long time. So this is like back to the 1980s, it looks like. So a chart that this long can get a little skewed, but in recent history, just look at I don't know. It'd be hard to go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, right. What do you? You wish I was in it. Long term. But to me, just all those lows at 290 really important. How about VRTX? How about this one is trading?
Same thing. I used to pay a little bit of attention to it. Really don't. I can't really help other than looking at a chart with everybody else. I think this has been one of the few big biotech winners. And I don't know. Same deal. I can't really speak to it other than, I don't know. On the long-term chart, this doesn't look nearly as pumped up as TMO does. But this has probably been running with sales growth and things like that. So as long as the chart has basically been moving along with sales growth and earnings growth, it's probably rational. Again, I don't know this one super well. I think I used to look at this a little more often. You're going to have to help on this one more than me.
What do you say at this one? You just want to, it had, from a monthly standpoint, look at all the time it spent between like 165, all those monthly lows right in that area. So that's a long ways away. You're 40 points away.
To be honest, it kind of looks like almost a fresh breakout.
I know.
Like you said, it's not like the stock wasn't at prices like this a couple years ago. It kind of marked a lot of time. This would be one, there have been times I've owned Google and Apple and Qualcomm and various names for long periods of time. And hey, if you have a strong thesis, a lot of times these are great stocks to hold for a period longer.
How about TripAdvisor? That got shellacked.
That's another one I don't really know. I know the space. I don't know the space as well as I used to. Here's what I'd say about this. I know enough about this to know, this is one of the stocks in my larger spreadsheets, and I do model this and I do some comparative work on it. It's getting to that kind of it's probably crazily attractive on valuation. My guess though is they've had a hard time meeting numbers, and they just keep, so every time they miss a number, they gap it lower again. At some point though, the gaps lower don't really make any sense because the stock's essentially selling off in the same news it's already had. So I'd have to look at this a little deeper. I do think this is getting down to almost like what I would call deep value territory. So it might be good to start looking at and start, you know, at least maybe trying some shots at it. With, you know, some cheap, like maybe some cheap calls or some cheap option plays, some spreads. You know, you kind of get your feet wet with a little bit of money and then see how that goes. But I don't know. I do think this is intriguing on valuation. Go ahead with the next one.
Here's a tough chart. IntelliStat, letter I.
I know that's this is another one. A lot of people have mentioned this as a 5G play. I've always, so I've always said I don't really like it because I don't really understand what's so special about it. And yeah, I don't know. So if the 2018 highs don't look very good now.
I'd say on a monthly basis here, I think you got to wait for $15. I see a monthly low.
Ooh, let me go to the monthly.
That was your, you know, if I was, you know, I mean, it's down a lot today, down a lot yesterday. So you can always, you know, focus, you know, 2-day move, 3-day move, whatever. This has been going down for 4 or 5 days. So, but on the monthly chart, I'm looking at this $15 area, and we could be heading there. When I get 2 monthly lows in the same area, 1481 and then 1507 from March and April, to me, you know, at least for the first time, that looks like a, you know, the next major support level that's coming into. I think this is maybe an ADR too. So you are getting a secondary trading action. Let's do a couple more before we wrap things up here. YEXT. I don't think that's a stock that I've ever traded. I mean, this one looks like it came off the low. It's consolidating. It has great support at 16, but I don't think I could get real excited about it until it broke above 17. Any thoughts on YE?
You know what? I'd probably be with you on this. You have that spike little low that was received well when it was hit in June. Stock responded well, went back into the 20s. You know, I don't know if this has been a victim of just sort of broader selling with the high value tech names. I don't think they're very, very expensive. I know some people like this name a lot. It's, again, there's always been others that I kind of favor. So if there's other names I favor, like I've done very well with, and it's not the same exact space, but it's like software tech, if you will. You know, I've done very well with Nutanix last few months, and Cloudera's had a huge move off of lows. So, you know, there's other names I kind of feel like right now I like ESTC a lot. I like Slack, which everybody hates. So this is one I don't know. I haven't done a ton of work on this other than I kind of look at it each quarter, look at the report, look at the valuation. It's probably okay. But you know, I don't know. It's not one I would say is sort of in my focused list, my focused top 50, if
How about
you will.
pins? Let's just do one more. Pinterest.
Yeah, I would greatly favor Pinterest, for example. Pinterest has a huge TAM. I think it's, we talked about this real briefly last week. I think this is one of those kind of funny deals where a company will lose 3 billion or 4 billion or more market cap over 2 million in revenues. And that's kind of how this is. I mean, let's say they reported their revenues 5 million higher. Would the stock even have been down off 26? I'm not sure it would have. So, you know, so that, you know, is 5 million revenue light? They only missed 5 million, but I'm just saying, like, if they would have been 5 million, 7 million higher, I don't know if the stock would have dropped much. So, you know, does a $3 billion sell-off make a lot of sense on $2 million of revenue or 3 million? I don't think it does. So this is one I've been buying post-report. This is one of my newer positions. And I've been in the stock previously that traded it great. It was in it, I think the day of the IPO, made good money, bought it again, somewhere in that 23.5 to 25 area, did well again. So I'm basically, this is the third time I've owned the stock.
All right, Sean, we're coming up here on 9:59. We've covered a lot of stocks here. I'd like to thank everyone that stuck around and participated in this. Sean sharing his fundamental and technical analysis of the markets, also throws in some sentiment numbers as well. S&Ps, I'll wrap things up here. Buy the dippers, lurking again here. We did not get to that pre-market low of 75.75. So on any kind of decline here, I think you're finding buyers, and then working our way back to unchanged. That all-time closing high that was made yesterday at 30.92. So of course, I want to see an improvement on that on the all-time closing high, and right there. That's your pre-market high as well, too. 91.75 was right in that area. Thanks, everyone, for sticking around. Sean, thanks for going in, showing us.
Always good being here.
Great charts, and we will check in with you on next Wednesday. We'll talk.
Yeah, have a great day. See you next week.
Okay, thank you.